back to the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. It's time for another conversation with the local group that helps to defend democracy. I'm talking about the Detroit Documenters. They play a vital role in improving our access to information. They attend a range of public meetings, and they document what leaders and community members are saying. That brings us to a meeting held by the Detroit Local Emergency Planning Committee. It responds to the kinds of sudden events that can cause serious chaos. We're talking about things like industrial hazards. One example it prepares for includes explosions at refineries, which some Metro Detroit residents live near. Federal cuts to a hospital preparedness program could impact this crucial part of emergency planning. Producer Jack Filbrandt talked to Detroit documenter Larae Baker and coordinator Noah Kincade to learn more.
Documenters covered the Detroit Local Emergency Planning Committee for the first time. I'm really curious, how do you plan coverage and select new boards, committees, commissions, whatnot to really zoom in on?
That's a great question. We love to zoom in on anything we've never heard of, first of all. So if it's something that is new to us, it's probably new to most people, and we'd love to bring a little bit of light to it. We kind of like casually say amongst ourselves, like, if TV cameras are going to be there, that's not our jam. That's not for Detroit documenters. Anything that's already getting coverage, it's already getting coverage, right? So, I mean, we're trying to use this people-powered movement, right, that we've created of like getting people out to meetings that no one else is paying attention to is really where we try to focus.
Larae, what is the Detroit Local Emergency Planning Committee?
So the Detroit Emergency Planning Committee is a public-private committee with representatives from the Detroit Police Department, Detroit Fire Department, Health Department, but also representatives from various chemical battery storage facilities and also private hospitals in the Detroit area that all work together to plan for emergencies, specifically in the hazardous material handling space, but also general emergencies across the city.
Noah, is this kind of public-private partnership when it comes to a committee like this unique?
I wouldn't say it's unique. I think that you see these private public partnerships happen where they just kind of make sense, right? So another example that we've talked about before is like economic development. So you've got a group like the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, right? And they're trying to, bring jobs and tourism and promote local Michigan industries, right? Well, they can't do that without the industries, right? So they've got to work with, manufacturers and artists and designers and all these different factions to get their job done. Well, emergency response is similar, right? Like Larae said, you've got, if something, there's an emergency event, you're going to have people from the local municipality, the police department, the fire department. You may have state and federal officials there monitoring air quality. You are going to have like EMS, ambulance drivers and paramedics, maybe from a private ambulance company, taking people to hospitals that are privately owned. So it just everyone is going to be involved in handling emergency response, and so it has to be, right, a public-private partnership.
Of recurring themes in meetings that we have been talking about on this documentary segment is federal budget cuts and how they are impacting us locally. Larae, what are the concerns related to cuts that came up at the meeting?
This meeting had representatives from several different committees, and one of the subcommittees was the hospital subcommittee. That was the subcommittee report that talked a lot about federal funding cuts. So a representative from Henry Ford Hospital, Christopher Jodowin, presented about cuts to a program called the Hospital Preparedness Program. And that program funds several different things in Detroit specifically, including the MedRun program, which is Michigan Emergency Drug Delivery and Resource Utilization Network. That program supports stashes of different antidotes to cyanide, nerve agents, and organophosphates throughout the city in case of emergencies. It also sponsors a burn surge planning program, which is in case of a mass casualty or a burn situation. And it also sponsors basic and advanced disaster life support training across the city. And one of the other cuts related to that was the emergency manager at the VA was determined to be non-essential.
Larae, when we are talking about emergencies, when it comes to the hospital preparedness program, what kind of emergencies are we really talking about? What kind of emergencies are these programs used for?
So recently, almost everybody in Detroit got a notification on their phone about an explosion at an apartment building. Something like that would be something where that burn surge program might come in handy. In that case, there weren't a lot of burns victims, but in Farmington Hills recently, there was an incident where there were a lot of victims of an apartment fire. And so that kind of program is necessary in order to respond adequately and appropriately to incidents like that.
It's the Metro, and we're talking to Detroit documenter Larae Baker and coordinator Noah Kincade about the Detroit Local Emergency Planning Committee. They're navigating potential federal budget cuts that could impact emergency preparedness programs. A lot of these programs I have never heard of before, but these are programs that the public quickly learns about in times of emergencies. Larae, can you talk about why these programs are important?
Yeah, a lot of residents of Detroit live close to various chemical companies, manufacturing facilities, storage facilities, and things that can go wrong, accidents or terrorist attacks or other things that could cause releases of hazardous materials into the air. We hope that this emergency committee would never have to respond to any of these emergencies, but in the case that they do, these programs are necessary in order to make sure that all of the committee members can work together efficiently and effectively, and are speaking the same language as they respond to these kinds of emergencies.
Noah, why is the federal government trying to get rid of this or put some cuts to these programs?
You know, they think it's wasteful spending. And it's, I feel like that's kind of a dishonest argument and doesn't really appreciate what these programs are trying to do. I moved into a new house with my partner 5 years ago, and the previous occupants left all kinds of stuff for us to use. There was a vacuum, there were all these tools in the garage. But one thing they didn't leave for us was a fire extinguisher. So we went out and we bought a fire extinguisher. And I think most people would think it would be foolish to spend money on buying or renting a house, then filling it with all of your most precious possessions and your family, right? But not spending the money for smoke detectors or a fire extinguisher. 5 years later, that fire extinguisher is still sitting exactly where we put it when we bought it. We've never picked it up, and I'm thankful that I haven't had to pick it up and use it. So it's a bit of a dishonest argument to say, well, we're spending all this money on these things, but gosh, we haven't used them in so long, or we barely ever use these things. But that is their argument. That's why they want to cut them.
Larae, the committee knows that these programs are crucial. What's being done to try and protect them?
This committee is working on finding some additional funding, either through the state of Michigan and avoiding federal funding, or through private entities, grants, and other ways to fund these kinds of programs.
One of the goals of the Detroit Local Emergency Planning is just helping the public understand what to do in cases of emergencies. And there's an opportunity for the public to learn more about that coming up. Can you talk about that?
This committee discussed that they are holding an emergency preparedness fair for the general public on June 21. That fair will be advertised by this committee throughout the area, but it will have representatives from all of these entities that are part of this committee, so that members of the public can come and talk to the companies that are operating near where they live, that they can talk to the fire department, and that they can put together a plan for their family, for their house, for their community. I think as funding cuts come, one of the things that we have to do is rely on each other. And going to fairs like this and meeting your community and developing emergency plans is a really good way to start to band together and to learn to trust your own community as well.
That was producer Jack Filbrandt talking to Detroit documenter Larae Baker and coordinator Noah Kincade about the Detroit Local Emergency Planning Committee. They're navigating federal cuts that could impact emergency disaster planning and responses in Southeast Michigan. From the WDET Newsroom, today is the 100th birthday of civil rights leader Malcolm X. Several events are planned across the city, including a celebration at Charles H. Wright Museum. It'll host a special behind-the-scenes tribute to Malcolm X's legacy through exclusive content shared through social media. As well, Wayne State University will also celebrate X's 100th birthday with a debate inside the University State Hall. It's the same building where the former Nation of Islam leader himself spoke in 1963. The program, titled Legacy in Action, the Malcolm X Centennial Birthday Debate, will be led by 4 Detroit school children from the city's Umoja Debate League and will focus on whether the Black community should prioritize strengthening local grassroots organizations over supporting Black political figures in the status quo. As well, the Coalition for Property Tax Justice rallied in front of the Detroit Public Library, calling for a moratorium on tax foreclosures for homes valued under $50,000. The group claims the city systemically overassesses those homes, leading to what it says are illegal tax foreclosures. The coalition says while a recent study shows average assessments are correct, overassessments are still a problem. It says the Wayne County Treasurer should not foreclose on a home until it shows the property was not overassessed. And the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is advising people to avoid foam on lakes and rivers this summer. Foam can form on any body of water and can appear white, off-white, or brown, and can sometimes contain harmful bacteria. Officials say the foam may have an earthy or fishy smell and can pile up along shores. If you get the foam on your skin, wash it off immediately. The health department also advises residents to keep their pets from playing or consuming the foam. Coming up, funding for sickle cell research was cut by the federal government. We'll hear about what it's like for local residents here in Detroit to experience sickle cell disease and how they are managing. You're listening to The Metro. We will be right back.